recording or green is recording?
Red's recording.
Okay, we're good.
Hello.
Hello.
You want to do intro?
No.
Okay.
Are you okay with that?
Sure. Hello, welcome to another episode of Cosmic Water Podcast. I'm so pleased to have Joaquin here. Joaquin Muerte, but what is your last name?
So my real government name is Raul Joaquin Abrego, but I go by Joaquin Muerte because I raised up in a neighborhood of a barrio in Del Rio, and that was a nickname that was given to me from my friends, and a lot of it comes from me just being like having a lot of curiosity in the dark. A lot of curiosity and like macabre and morbid things. I've always kind of been like unofficially an uncertified death doula. One of the things that I was doing as a kid was doing a lot of serenades for my family, and I would serenade some of my family members as they were transitioning out. Mm-hmm. And so it just became a kind of a nickname that not only stuck. And then when I was in high school, I got a job working for radio. I was a radio personality, and I was working the midnight hour, and so then I just called it the midnight, or I called it the graveyard shift with Joaquin Muerte. Nice. And it just fit, man. People were like, it's hilarious. So it just stuck. But also I've learned that, right, there's power in a name. You know, the name Joaquin was given to me by my mother based off of the poem by Corky Gonzalez, Yo soy Joaquin, I am Joaquin. And she intentionally gave me that name because she wanted to put that, you know, social justice responsibility on me, you know. Yeah. And then the other one is that whenever I introduce myself as Joaquin Muerte, a nickname, right, and I introduce myself with in spaces, like, for example, like I used to work with at UT Health, and I used to work with doctors, and we would have meetings and staff meetings, and all the doctors would sit around. They would say, well, this is our, you know, community organizer Joaquin, and they would like, Joaquin, introduce yourself. So I would tell myself, people like Joaquin Muerte, and immediately they would be like, interesting name. And I immediately added worth to myself in a space that I was like, you know, I was not, I'm sure I wasn't, you know, I didn't have a degree, or
you didn't have the social capital.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, for me, those are very important points, and when I'm, and as far as like the work that I'm doing.
Nice.
Yeah, so Joaquin Muerte is a nickname. Joaquin Abrego is how my grandfather pronounced it, is my official name, which I'm learning. I go deep into it because I'm like, I dig this, but I'm learning that the name Abrego is a last name given to the Irish folks who were named O'Brien originally, but came to Texas to fight the Texas-Mexican War.
Heck yeah, the San Patricio.
San Patricio. So my last name is closely associated with San Patricio Army. What? And I think that my grandfather somewhere along the lines in the rancho where my grandfather grew up in Del Rio, he was given the name Abrego. But my grandfather was originally indigenous to Southwest Texas. When I asked him about that, right, he said, "Oh, I'm from here." And I said, "Okay, well, what part of Mexico? Like Acuña, like, because we're from Del Rio, and Acuña next door." And he was just like, "No, I'm from here, right here. I'm from right here." And I'm just thinking, like, okay, because that area was largely Comanche territory, and the Comanches basically ran that little corner of Del Rio back before it was Del Rio, before it was Mexico. And there's a little area there that's called Lookout Mountain, where the Comanches would shoot any white person that walked in. And so so I kind of like did the math, and then so you know, I kind of like associate myself with the San Patricios. And then my grandmother, who is Martinez and from Eagle Pass, her sister's like she's really into doing like genealogy. And she found a record of my grandmother's grandfather, right? So that generation, that he had an officiated letter from the Kickapoo tribe saying that he was protected under some kind of rights from the Kickapoo from not getting kicked out of class. So back then, if you misbehaved, if you were indigenous, you couldn't get kicked out of class. You had to treat them as equal as any kid that was in the class. And so he had to get a letter signed by the chief of the Kickapoo tribe saying that he's indigenous and he has to stay in class. And so then I find out later that my grandmother was Kickapoo.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So I don't know what Mexican part. I don't know what part of Mexico. I think my mother has some roots in Mexico, but we don't know. It's all Southwest Texas indigenous roots.
We've had those conversations about how a lot of people don't realize that being Mexican is being indigenous.
Straight up, yeah.
My daughter, my children are half Mexican, and and so I tell them, that you're indigenous. They, I believe, have roots in Comanche, but I'm not exactly sure from how I can follow their family history. And so she said in school once that she was indigenous, and they were like, they told her, no, you're not, like you're Mexican, basically. And I was like, no, that's not true. You do. That's something that. More people need to realize, because there's actually fights and arguments about it, right?
We're starting to see a lot more folks on TikTok that are doing this, these lineage kind of timelines where they're kind of saying okay, at what point did the colonization happen, right? And so there's certain parts of Mexico where maybe culturally things were colonized, right? People brought some kind of flour or maybe introduced some kind of things to that part of Mexico, but the tribe itself remained intact. People of that area remained intact. Maybe they had a Catholic church in the neighborhood, but other than that, majority of those people are still talking the language. And so you'll see people travel out of those little towns and come to the United States, and they come and get Americanized, and it's but they still have that deep roots in Quiche or some kind of Mayan language. And then people are just no, well, I'm indigenous. And it's just but then the funny thing is that there's still that Chicano experience of okay, but are you you're not Native American.
Right.
And so then, there's just the difference is the American experience. And I think that Native American folks who have lived in reservations, who have history of the Trail of Tears, we're going to say that it's a big different experience.
It is all very different experiences for sure, and different types of oppression. And we've actually talked on this podcast a few times too about that Irish and Mexican connection, because my family goes back to the IRA and fighting against colonization of the land, which wouldn't exist. Ireland wouldn't exist if it wasn't for violent retaliation against the colonizers, right? Which is why when they came here and saw Mexico being taken over, they joined on the Mexican side, on the Mexican forces, the San Patricio Brigade. And I'm actually curious, I don't know if this is going, but I'm curious your thoughts then on right now Palestine, because when I see that, I see my Irish ancestors, I see my kids' Mexican ancestors or indigenous ancestors, fighting for their land. I mean, would Mexico even exist as brown if it wasn't for Aztecs and Comanche fighting violently back? And so I don't know, what is that argument kind of going right now?
Word. That's deep. That's a deep question. And so I don't know enough about Palestine or Israel and to be able to speak on the history of that. But what I do recognize is colonization, because I come from, growing up, surviving in a barrio that has been poverty stricken because of historical colonization, because of historical racism and institutional racism that comes from folks who are fighting hard for white privilege and that kind of thing. So I can see it. It's obvious that that the Palestinians are fighting that colonization, and when people say free Palestine, it sounds a lot like the decolonization process of the indigenous people, the decolonization process of Chicanos. It sounds like Black Lives Matter. It sounds like those movements. It sounds like the San Patricios, right? It sounds like freeing this, Mexico freeing the slaves and that kind of thing. So I definitely stand on the side of the Palestinians. Because even if I don't understand totally the history, I can recognize the fight, know. But and so I do have Palestinian friends who have basically guided me. But being in the realm of social justice, it's obvious. I don't pay attention to mainstream media. I don't even listen to mainstream radio, like pop music and that kind of stuff. So like when I see celebrities, standing on this like, oh, like the violence needs to stop and like blah blah blah, like both sides are being ugly, and I'm just kind of like, why don't you just go back to your like super chill life of privilege and just go like and just shut up, you know what I mean? Like because that literally some of those people, they're influencing the small folks that, I mean, I say small, right? Like my Chingon family that is watching that stuff.
Yeah.
And then we have to begin the fight at home, because that's, once again, it looks different. And they and colonizers and settler colonialism adapts itself in ways that we have to be able to learn how to adapt back. Like we have to learn how to fight, because where we're at is a stronghold in standing up against injustice. And so, like, we were talking about this last night. I'm standing in on the drums with the Canción Cannibal Cabaret with Amalia Ortiz. And I love that we can have these really in-depth conversations about, like, injustice and that kind of thing. And we were kind of talking about how, like, Republican right-wing folks they change the way that they talk about these things in order for them to be able to get votes for the next coming year. And it sounds so intriguing, and it sounds like they're like wanting to free people, or it sounds like they're like looking out for the people when they say like, oh, we need to like, whatever, like, stop taxing, and it's like, okay, but it's like all it is just language, in a front facing language. It's like it's just a narrative, so people can be like, oh, like I think I stand with that, And so we're seeing this happen with in the news, in the media, with Israel and Palestine, when people are just like, oh, like stop the violence, like, oh, please stop fighting. And it's just like, it's bigger than that. Mm-hmm. The fight is gonna happen, and we gotta just get used to standing on the side of justice,
Yeah.
Anyway, I think about that too, because I think about like being from Del Rio, like sometimes tens of thousands of people will come in from the other side of the border trying to seek, a peaceful lifestyle or a piece of the American dream, or even just trying to escape violence from parts of the world where they're experiencing like high cartel takeover, right? And so like these people are coming into Del Rio, and they're just like they're flooding at the gates, like, and so like that. As you really start to see who's who in my hometown, of like who's supporting and who's against, right? When people use words like undocumented or illegal.
Right.
And so those little things, like for me, I'm just like, like lost my vote, like, or like I'm not shopping at that pizza shop, and I love pizza. So, never again.
There's when I like kind of had my coming to Jesus, I grew up Catholic, but like I don't know, I'd never really resonated with Jesus, I guess. Mary was a different story for me. But then when I kind of got to know Jesus in the past couple years, it was through social justice. It was through all of my organizing work. I do a lot of like housing and anti-gentrification stuff. And I started like every time I would open the Bible to the New Testament, I would see like stories of Jesus that felt resonant to what I was experiencing fighting our city government. And that's ultimately what he was doing, is fighting this Roman colonization of his land, which was Palestine. And anyway, one of the first Bible quotes that really hit me hard was that he said, I didn't come with peace, I came with a sword. And when I like researched it, it was that line was mentioned in a couple of different gospels, which the way that they see that is that he was going around all of that area, Palestine, around Jerusalem and stuff, Galilee, and giving political speeches. It wasn't just like, love and peace he was doing. He was literally traveling around trying to get everybody aware and understanding that they were taking the land. And that was one of the quotes that apparently they say that he said often in these speeches. I don't come with peace, I come with a sword. And that meant that when you said that, we have to take the fight home. It's making us take the fight home, because now my kids are going to see this stuff on social media, and they do, right? And I have to like tell them like, well, beware, like, beware of what you're seeing on YouTube shorts, on whatever, because we have to teach them. We have to bring that sword home and recognize that like there's violent things out there that are like out to get you. And Jesus is like, cut those people out.
I I've had to like do some of that research, because when so a lot of my podcast stuff is like talking about aliens and
which I want to talk about.
Yeah. Well, let's get into it. But so it's like talking about aliens, talking about ghosts, but it's doing it from a very heavy people of color perspective. Like the one thing that is out there in the same realm is the conspiracy theory stuff, and so then I've had to really distinguish some of the differences between a right-wing narrative of conspiracy theory and the people's narrative of conspiracy theory. Like, and COVID made it very obvious. COVID was one of them. And I never talked about COVID in my podcast because I was like, one, I was doing the work within the community about COVID. I was educating folks around their health and like being well and protecting themselves and that kind of thing. So like I couldn't dive into some of the COVID conspiracy theories, but I was seeing them all, But
yes.
I mean, you had to see, like, I had to dig really deep into the links of like some of these websites that I was going into where it would just be all like, like we stand in the face of justice for COVID. And then I'd be like, I was like, oh, cool. Like, Nurses for Justice. I'd like, oh, cool. Like, let me look into this. And then like you would go to the bottom of the webpage and then like click on the link and it'd be like all these like hardcore right-wing Republican nurses. And then like there was like a link to their Facebook, and then you would like go to Facebook and it'd be like rowdy Trump supporters. And then you're just like, okay, man, like that's not what I was trying to do. So then I just like, I've had to do that because like, some of the conspiracy theory stuff is that like, where is our origin story, right? Like, we talk about the Aztecs, we talk about the Mayans, and we talk about like those, we talk about like the Anishinaabe tribes and like, some of the Lipan Apache tribes, or even the Lakota. A lot of those folks have this origin story around with the Star People, and so, right. So they have a connection and a relationship with the stars, but then you have a group of people who say that aliens did everything.
Right.
And it's just like, okay, but like, and then there's the whole talk about like the prison planet, right? Have y'all heard this story before? Mm-mm. So like the idea that like the Earth is just a prison planet, like we are imprisoned on Earth. And, there's like all this stuff happening like in the galaxy, and like there's like, there's things that we can't see because we're basically just like prisoners. We're like in our cell of the Earth, and we're just working the Earth so that, alien planets and other planets can come and harvest what we're working, like, that kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's like a crazy concept, but the idea is that like,
believe it.
Well, we're like real, like the thing is that like as human beings, as indigenous people, we're real lined up with some of the magic of this planet. Mm-hmm. Like, then, for me, that's like, okay, the concept of prison is a very colonial concept. So like, I don't know, I line up more with the magic of this planet, like I think that we have more of a connection with the rocks, and we have more connection with the sun, and like, that's why, I don't know. So anyway, the point is that I've had to distinguish a lot between what is crazy right-wing Republican Donald Trump kind of conspiracy theory versus what is like, a perspective from like actual people,
Mm-hmm, totally. I was going to say about being like a prison. I definitely, vibe with the like, no, this is magic. I always try to like tell I do mental health. I do therapy for people. And it's just so sad to me when people just feel like there's no point in life or no point in living. And, I recognize I'm coming from a place of privilege, but just like, I'm always just like to my kids, like, wow, how incredible it is that we have these flowers, that these trees, like how amazing that we exist on this earth. And I want you to know that every single day of your life, to feel that kind of gratitude, because I see how people so easily lose hope. And at the same time, I wonder about this prison analogy, because in some ways, I don't know about like all of that, but the way that we are getting entrapped in our minds, mm-hmm. right? To be disconnected from the magic. And it's because of these like social media influences, which I was telling Ange before this. Have you ever seen those Hulu commercials? It's where like celebrities kind of play and act out these conspiracy theories that like they're aliens or they're lizards, and they're like, oh yeah, and they like bring you into the basement and then stick a bunch of stuff in your brain. Oh, this is what we're really doing with all of our TV shows. And it's kind of like that.
I haven't seen that. That's interesting.
I know. I told Angela, I was like, you just got to look it up to like see how crazy it is. But right, it's like them when they like show us what they're doing, then that karmic kind of concept, right? Where like the karma's not on them anymore. If we see that they are sucking our brain energy, our energy,
consensual.
Yes, it becomes consensual because we're continuing to allow them to do that with their TV shows and stuff. And so in that sense, I wonder if this like prison kind of thing, and I don't know if it's other aliens, like I can't go that far. It'll make my head crazy. What's actually doing that. But there is this like, anyway, kind of prison-like way, maybe through social media. I don't know.
What are your thoughts on that?
I don't know. It's a new idea for me. So I feel like I have one foot in both spaces. And I was telling her earlier, I need an awakening. Like listening to Ashley or whatever, was like, I want to get my hair done by her.
Oh, I know she does good.
But just to like be connected to that sort of a thing, because I feel like I do have one foot in this space and the other foot in the other, because I can easily lose hope. You know, I've been impatient before. Listening to Ashley is like, okay, yeah. So I don't know. For me, like, it's still liminal space.
What's the impatience?
Well, I mean, I was gonna say, one thing that I feel like I'm hearing from you, and I totally like line up with this, is that like, I think that one thing that the one beautiful thing about being indigenous is that we have our foot in both doors, or we have the door, ourselves half in and half out. Like there is one thing about being really our feet on the ground. When it's hot, it's hot and it sucks, right? But then there's the other piece that's just kind of like, but thank you, Father, Son, right? And then there's just times where we're like, and I don't experience this, but like, I'm on my moon and like I could feel the like pull of like this full moon. It makes my stomach hurt and I'm feeling sick. But also thank you, Mother Moon, right? Yeah. And so like there's this like, what is for me, that's a horrible analogy because I have no experience with any of that, but like what is that having our feet in the both doors? One of the things that I would talk to, so I don't really talk a lot about this because it's a very private thing for me, but so I'm a danzante. Like I've been participating in danza since I was born. My parents got into it when they were younger, and when I was born, we kind of like just jumped right into it. So like I'm part of a group called Grupo Shinashli, which is based out of Cedar Creek. But since we've been in it for so long, it's also based out of Del Rio and San Antonio. So we have the three towns. We connect, and the families, we get together and we do ceremonies. But our ceremonies are very private. We've done some public ceremonies before, but we keep it very much within the family and keep it very ceremonial, spiritually focused. I feel like that has been like I forgot the point that I was going to make. What was the thing that I was saying right before that?
I was talking about being in both places.
Oh yes, okay. So like the one thing about the ceremony is that like it's physically straining on the body. Like it's really, really hard to do. It's like when we do these overnight ceremonies that are like, I mean, they're exhausting. But then like there's this like really nice spiritual connection, like a spiritual awakening afterwards. And I always talk to my jefe about this when I ask him about, I want to be like, sometimes I want to fall deep into this hippie. I want to fall deep into this like spiritual awakening type of person. And he always says like, yeah, well, don't forget that you're an Aztec, Aztecs like gold. And I'm thinking like, that's funny to say that. And I don't think that it actually means real gold, but I think that it means kind of like, we like good shit too, We like to be clean and have cologne and jewelry and shit. And so like, for me, it's like, we're always one foot in the door and one foot out. It's just a reality of who we are as indigenous people.
I fear grandiosity. So I see it as sort of a balance in trying not to go that way. I get nervous. I don't know, when people kind of talk about like, you know, I'm protected because my mission is more important than others or something like that. That kind of bothers me. But yet at the same time, I've had throughout my life experiences where I can totally believe that I'm protected in some ways. So I don't know, but I can't help when I think of things like that to stay away from grandiosity, because then I think, and what of the children of Uvalde? What of the children in Palestine? Like, my mission is more. I don't know. I need to explore that sort of thing more. But that's what I fear when. So I keep one foot.
I love that. Nah, you've said something very important, because that's true. And like, you know, it's whether I follow like this. Like, I don't know how. I don't have a response to that. I love that point.
I only have questions. I don't have too many answers, but I got questions.
That's so interesting. I've been studying dialectical behavioral therapy just the past like few days. I've been doing a lot of research to implement it in my practices.
What is that?
It's this idea that like two realities exist at once, right? And so one foot in this door and one foot in the other, and both can coexist. Or like you say, the grandiosity, fearful of that, or that like, you know, who's to say that I am chosen or whatever. And it's like, what if you're everyone, you know, they're all chosen. It's like, you are chosen and you are special, and your material wellness, right, your gold is important. It's important to like feel safe here on this earth, and at the same time be connected spiritually, and in a really that's how I'm seeing this anyway, as I'm like balancing these like different realities or trying to bring them together. That's what, like, I mean, the point ultimately of dialectical behavioral therapy is like, okay, I'm doing the best that I can right now, and I need to do better. It's like bringing those two kind of conflicting ideas together. And so, yeah, that's what I'm witnessing right now. And when you say like it, I just have questions. It's like, that's ultimately what therapy is about too, right?
Well, one of the things that kind of first came to mind was somebody. I remember when I first got hired for the city of San Antonio, I was tasked with working in a program called Healthy Neighborhoods, and I was given the neighborhood Edgewood. That was the Edgewood community neighborhood, and like, if you know Edgewood, it's like.
Is that West Side?
It's West Side, yeah. It's like San Antonio's West Side. And like, I know so many people in the West Side. So when I moved over here, that was one of the first neighborhoods I started working in. And so like, I just called on my people, and they immediately opened the doors, man. People were so open to just having me. And like, I also used the leverage of like all these bands and all the shit that I'm doing. So they were like, okay, I come in here. It's going to be fun. And then I'm also like super down for whatever. So like, you know, sometimes they'd be all like, well, you want to do fitness? Then play some cumbias and let's dance cumbias. And I'd be all like, okay, you know, and just like start playing, you know, Selena, and then like wailing my arms around and dancing cumbia like in the middle of the thing, and people would be all like, this dude is hilarious, please come back tomorrow. And so then I would open the doors for myself in this kind of way, like being silly, and I'm super down for whatever. But then but I remember my boss at the time, who was like, she was about to split the position, and she was being kind of destructive, and she was just like, don't romanticize this barrio, it's not romantic. And I was thinking like, but it is for me. But then I was like, but yeah, you're right, it isn't. And I kind of was like torn in between the two. I was like when we think about West Side, you know, the West Side has been experiencing the same amount of poverty for the past 50 years in the 78207 neighborhood. And the same for this neighborhood that we're in right now, right? The East Side has also been experiencing poverty for such a long time. It's like in research, it's like, it's historical poverty. Like, it hasn't changed at all, and large amounts of these communities here suffer from that. Anything that is a result of that systemic institutional racism and poverty, like that, is heavy. It's heavy here. But like, you also have like Chicano soul that's like literally like born in these communities. You have like Chicano funk, and like San Antonio's own like the art scene and the filmmakers and the theater and all that, man, coming from here. You could also like, okay, you think about like romanticizing stuff and the magic of that in those neighborhoods, dude. Some of the like most mysterious and like I don't want to say scary because I'm not scared, but like some of the most like mysterious like botanicas are like in these communities, dude. You can get anything in here. You can find anything. You can find like cargas and Santa Muertes. You can find like, I mean, Palo Santo and Palo Azul. I mean, there's just so much in these communities. So like, it is, and for me, it's romantic. For me, it's romanticized. For me, this is Hogwarts. I'm in Hogwarts. You know what I mean? I'm in the Shire, dude. But you know, yeah, it's a rough Shire. It's the Shire of hard knocks. It is magical,
though. You know, like I had the privilege of not living here for a good while after high school, and yeah, and then I would think about my experiences growing up here, and like, I don't know. David Zamora Casas, like being regular scene in the scene, like, you know what I saw, like it was magical. Sandra Cisneros, like I have so many stalker pictures of her house from when I was a kid, like, you know, like I don't know, but that was like,
what was it called, a Casa Azul or something like that, or no?
That was her like poet, maybe writer's place, but like her actual house, the pink house. Yeah. But it was like in my neighborhood, like because my family's from Lavaca. They were displaced from Hemisphere, so like the whole history of gentrification.
That's this barrio that's right here, right? The one that's the what used to be the Lavaca Courts, or Victoria, what were they called? The Victoria Courts.
Just south, right? Right there.
Tell them about your tree.
So at the base of the tower, the largest southern oak, it's right there, and it has like benches around the trunk and stuff. It's beautiful. It's 202 years old. That was in my mom's front yard when they were a kid, that got destroyed for Hemisphere in '68. But like, you know, so we still go and take pictures, and like that's our historical marker.
It's the biggest tree.
And that's the next phase of construction going to happen in Hemisphere. So I'm like, are they going to say, oh, we're going to move it just 2 feet or whatever? Like, oh, great. Like,
hey, it's not the Alamo, bro. You know, dude, that's insane. So I don't know that history. I'm glad that you're telling me that, because like the trees are the indicators, man. Like, you know, they're the ones that have like the oldest history in this town. That
tree, when it was first growing, was when the city was becoming part of Mexico. It was first. That's when, you know, that's how old it was. And so, like, you know, if these trees could speak.
That's blowing my mind right now, dude. Mm-hmm. I'm literally thinking about that, because could you imagine what it's seen? You know, you're saying what it's seen, man.
And it's been from different countries and wars, and you know, all these people of power. And
you know what we should do? We should put together like a group. I don't know, this is crazy.
Okay, yes.
But we should well, there's a couple of things out, right? We should put together a group where we just like where we communicate with the roots of the trees. Like, you know how they say that the roots are like this like network system of communication. Absolutely. Like, oh man, I wish we could tap into that.
And so they still they want to move them, you know, and they're like, you know, these people, they're like, oh, we're just gonna move it. Like at Brackenridge, they're one of the huge big oak trees that they're just going to move it a few feet. It's like, do you realize what you're doing underneath? You're just, you know, what you're destroying just by attempting to move it. And they attempted to move like really old trees for this new civic park at Hemisphere, and some of those died in that attempt to move. Yeah, so it's not guaranteed that these
that they'll stay alive, or that the history will be even kept. And it's crazy because, like, you know, some of the things that the people are experiencing downtown is that, right, they're digging up these bones of like some of the indigenous folks that are from here, and they're just like, you know, like, and it's like, what do you mean? Like, dude, like, really, where's the history and where's the respect for our history?
Oh, none here in San Antonio. Yeah. It's so heavily colonized in City Hall.
And it's like, you know, some of the history like these like Texas heroes, that's like the history they want to hold on to. And those guys are like, they have like the shittiest story, dude. Like, come on, man.
So my favorite person that I love to talk about is Colonel Thomas Frost. He was a Confederate soldier.
Is that the Frost Bank?
Frost Bank.
Oh, Frost Bank time.
And so, like, all right, what was that 227-3232?
Yeah.
So
hey, mijo. Hey, mijo, how's the weather going to be? Hold on, mom. Like,
so Frostbank, you can call still to this day.
Yeah.
You can call 227-3232 and it tells you the time and the weather or the temperature.
and it would tell you, would it tell you if the school was going to get canceled?
Oh,
Possibly.
I mean, if it was
But
really messed up, the weather was super cold in the school.
my uncle used to give that to people who would his phone number was always such a mystery, and he would give people that number.
Dude, do you remember? Okay, before we get into stuff, but do you remember the phone number that was like the scary phone number? Like some people they would say it was like not the donkey lady number, but it was like a phone number that you call and like it'd be like a scary voice or like some weird.
That
Did y'all have
sounds
that?
familiar, but I don't remember ever calling.
We used to have one of those in Del Rio, and you would call it and it'd be like these weird sounds, like it's not like weird like sitar music and like somebody chanting all weird, but it wasn't like
It's probably some just new age group or something, but people called it the scary number.
it was scary. So because it would change with each time that you would call. So I don't know, it was scary. Anyway, so Colonel Frost.
Oh yeah, so just like he's got such a legacy, right? Like here in town, you see the Frost everywhere, sponsoring this and that, and he gave like the first loan to a black man to open the first like black grocery store and that sort of thing. But like he's pro-slavery. How can you like be okay with that? And like like he was a lawyer before he went into banking. And what did lawyers do back then? They handled contracts of property. Guess what was property back then? People. You know, so like he's already like
Yeah.
fuck that guy. And he
for real. Anyway, sponsored by. I know.
I had already said, oh, I guess we're not gonna get sponsored by Frost.
No, but you know what though, it is hard to ask for sponsorship knowing that some of the history is terrible. Like, you know, like. So a lot of my sponsorships, which I have almost zero, but I do have some friends that have come through. They're like individual people who just see the vision. They see my vision.
yeah.
And I would rather do that because, like, you know, so when I do my podcast, when I put it online, I put it through a website called Anchor, which is now Spotify for podcasts. Right? Spotify, yeah.
You gotta write this down.
Yeah, so basically it distributes it, the audio, it distributes it all throughout all the different podcasts. And so when I was using that, it would give you like an option to like use like some of their commercials, and like some of the stuff that I was like, dude, like, you know, like Herbalife, like I'm like, no man, I'm not gonna offer that to my people. Like my people, they're getting ripped off by that stuff all the time, you know. So I was just like, you know what, I'm just gonna figure it out on my own. But I did like steal. I did steal like the way that the narrative that they create for you. They give you these bullet points and they tell you like, okay, like say this. And like, so I was just like, okay, well, I'm just gonna like steal that whole, like I take like pictures and add my own words to it and then do like a sponsorship for, you know, I did one for Ricardo Briones, is the attorney. Yeah. And he gave me a sponsorship and that was cool. And so I did a commercial for him where I was like, I have some silly ass shit, but you know, like I created the little commercial for him, you know? But yeah, cause I hate to think that like, okay, what am I promoting here, you know?
For sure.
Like I think
conscious.
Everybody, there was a time where everybody was doing this Blue Apron. I think it was called Blue Apron for a little while, and a lot of the podcasters were doing this it was like a meal prep or like you order it and it gives you the food, and all you have to do is put it together and cook it, right? And now the people are seeing the effects of that, like of how bad that business was, you know, like and they promoted the crap out of it, you know.
Yeah, BetterHelp is another one that lots and lots of YouTubers were promoting and putting commercials on their videos for and stuff. And then like there's been a lot of controversy about the ethics of BetterHelp. And yeah, it is really hard. I think about that all the time, about how to ethically get to
How did y'all not kill this drink? I was like, I want to like.
My bad. So I don't have to use the bathroom. I'm taking my time.
Because I have to shake it, and I'm like, I don't want to do it.
I'm like, this is so good. I'm just like, drink the whole thing.
They're so good.
You know what I appreciate about you though is like you're already like fuck Fiesta. You know, because I mean everybody. I mean, there's plenty of people that are like.
Did you see my Spectrum News report?
I don't know if that's where I saw it or I don't know, but like, yes, thank you. God. Because there's so much gente out there that's just like putting on the clown suit once a year for Fiesta and participating in that sort of thing. And then like, And I can understand if you're like working for a nonprofit, which is also problematic or whatever, because now the whole metal things is part of like fundraising and stuff like that. But it's like, but don't y'all know? Like y'all know,
where's it
like
from?
y'all
know where it's
like,
from. For real, dude. Let me just tell you, like that has been like one of the weirdest stances that I've had to like really put my feet on the ground for, because like I'm also a musician, and like so all the bands like are showing up those days. But like the truth is that like unless you're like a major act, and I don't even know this because I'm not a major act, I'm a local band, I'm a local performer. The fiesta gigs don't pay. You have to haul all your equipment. You have to sometimes you have to do your own sound. You have to then you have to be there sometimes for hours, and then you have to like you're doing all of this while there's a massive crowd in the city, right? And it's not worth your time to get for like $300 to $350 to $400, and there's like 6 members of the band, right? And then like you're tired. I'm tired. Like I'll be tired, and so like it's not worth it. And then to look at the history of it all, it doesn't feel right. I don't feel good about being there. Like it feels like I'm doing a disservice to not only my history but also like even the music community. And so like I've gotten into fights with my homies, man. Like I've gotten into serious fights with my homies because they're just like, dude, how come you're saying no to this gig? And so I just started telling people, I'm like, dude, I'll help you find somebody else to play this gig, right? And I just like asked for, I'll build a roster for my team, because if you must play this event, like then here's a drummer that'll do it. Here's a singer that'll do it. And if they just continue on with that drummer and that singer, fine, that's good. Then do your thing. Like I have my projects that I'm focusing on, but it's hard to do. I did this Spectrum News.
Maybe that's where I read. I didn't watch it, but I think I read.
Jose Arredondo recorded the piece, and he took me downtown and stuff, and he's funny. Jose Arredondo,
I don't think so.
He goes by your Tia's favorite reporter. He's that dude, Jose Arredondo. Anyway, he's on Spectrum. He's hilarious, and he did this piece because he was like, you stand against Fiesta, right? Because he was doing like a piece on people who were like Fiesta, hardcore Fiesta people, and he was like, well, you're like against Fiesta. I was like, yeah, and he was just like, can I do a piece on you? And I was like, yeah, dude. Like within like 2 or 3 days, it was like 25,000 views. Like it was like, I don't know how many shares. I was just like, yo, but yeah, I became the dude who hates Fiesta.
Yeah,
well, there's 2 now.
Talking about like the energetics of it, because I'm thinking about like like with Frost Tower and stuff, and just like the to me like the like they know metaphysics, right? Like these top people with Fiesta, I'm sure it's used a lot. And then what really what Anja told me about you saying that Dia de los Muertos kind of being a I guess energy harvesting kind of experience.
It's magic happening, I think, is what you were
saying.
Magic.
It's like
the ritual.
The ritual, the worldwide altar. Like when you go to a Catholic mass, right? You have this melodramatic experience where so does I believe that the Catholic Church is conjuring, right? I believe
Absolutely.
that and so like when you're then when they're offering up the bread and they're saying this is the blood of Christ and that kind of stuff, like it's a conjure. They're conjuring a spirit. That's how they make the magic, and I feel like that's why the churches are still alive. They're like literally
they're harvesting our energy.
And
that's how I feel.
And they're creating magic. They're doing magic with it. And I always one thing that I've learned about like studying some magic is that like you have to have permission.
That's what I was saying about the consent. Yeah,
you have to have permission. You have to have permission from the spirits that are in the area, right? So like what I've learned, and I don't know if I have to go back into this, but it's been it's been a little while since I've talked about this or even read about it. But like you have to go to the energies and the spirits that are in the area. And what I mean by in the area, literally like in this circle. Like spirits are assigned to areas of the world, and like so there is a spirit here, right? There is a spirit also with us. What I'm learning is that like people who are able to read other people, that's because they're able to access the spirits that are standing with them. So like there's a permission that has to be asked. You have to have permission. So like for me, Dia de los Muertos is a massive conjuring of the spirits of that area, of all these areas. And so like it's like the marigolds, for example, are like the light that they see in order for them to show up to our altares that we ask them, and then we offer them food and we offer them water and all that's like gateway stuff. It's like, you come in, yeah. open the gates. I'm super down for it, but one of the things that I've noticed is that like it's kind of like Christmas time, and you're like, say for example, you're hosting the family Christmas, right? People show up early, or some people will show up on Christmas Day, but some of your family will show up like maybe a couple of days before, or maybe like 3 or 4 weeks before, and they spend some time with you. Like that's their vacation and stuff. Like for me, at Dia de los Muertos is like the dead Christmas. Like it's like everybody's showing up, and so like I'm already starting to see how like people's energies are moving. Like I'm starting to notice how like there's a lot of kick up in the paranormal and like the town. Like the energy is really high. Like it's high right now as it's cooling down and we're getting closer to this like major conjuring. Like the energy is really high, dude, and people are experiencing a lot of ghosts.
And it's happening more and more. Just like I was telling Ange, as you were talking about, like, you know, I want an awakening. I want to step into this awakening. Like, and now's the time to do it. It's almost like since 2020, it's like everything's fair game. Like, I started studying astrology when I was 19, so 35, like 16 years ago. And probably for the first like 10 years, I didn't tell anybody. Like, it was because nobody talked about that kind of stuff ever. So it was just like my little secret thing that I was like always studying. And then I think around like 2016 is when social media kind of took off with astrology, and then it became mainstream. And like now I can't even imagine everyone not knowing everything they can about astrology, whereas in the past, like if I brought it up to somebody, like
you were like a witch.
I was so weird.
Yeah.
And in some ways, you know, when I got my first tarot deck when I was 20, I think my brother gave it to me for Christmas, and it was in my home, and I grew up really Catholic. My family's very like mass every Sunday of my whole life. Which now I'm like, oh my gosh, they were harvesting off of me the whole time. But
I don't see it as I don't see it as a negative thing. I just that we are just like in an energy war. Like I don't see it as a negative thing. I see it as like I'm harvesting from you, you're harvesting from me. Like it's just a constant. Like it's a constant. But like I'm not a Christian at all. I'm not a Christian at all. Like I'm not against it. I was raised up indigenous. So like my practice has always been an indigenous practice. Still very spiritual. I'm still very religious. And I love all religions, right? But I definitely can see that there is like the constant borrowing of spirits in all the things that we do. And like I think that the Christian church is doing it in a different way, but it's still kind of like they're still calling for them.
It's so magical. I mean, this is the same thing that's been happening for 2,000 years. Like the exact same the whole like transmutation of bread and wine into body and blood. When my dad, that's what I was gonna say, like when I got my first tarot cards, my dad was like, be careful with those, you know, the devil's in them or whatever. I was like, whatever. And then as I got more into like astrology and stuff, and he'd be like, oh, you're worshiping, you know, whatever. I'm like, whatever. You like think bread and wine is turning into body and blood, and like truly, that's all magic. It's all magic. But at the same time now, especially since 2020, and recognizing that there are a lot of evil forces around, I'm like grateful that he gave me that heads up, because like you said, there's spirits all over. And so like if you look at tarot videos on YouTube or TikTok or Instagram, whatever, it kind of freaks me out sometimes, because the reader will be like, oh, thank you, spirit, okay, oh, my spirits are telling me this, and I'm like, and I guess because I grew up Catholic, and not like I like follow that to a T, but like to me there's like one creator energy. And I don't know, I do tarot, but I can't say that I'm like talking to anybody. It's just kind of whatever's coming out of me. I get kind of nervous hearing like, thank you, spirit, oh, my spirit just said this, and I'm like, who's your spirits? Like who are you channeling through? And so many people, I how this, like, okay, so you know the chakras, and like the top is the crown, and that's what like opens us up into the cosmos or whatever. And I've seen people kind of like prematurely open that up. And what energies are you opening yourself up to? That's why so many of these spiritual guru leaders or whatever are channeling from spirits of who? Like what? And so what are they teaching us? And so all of this, like, I mean, mindfulness, yoga, tarot, all this spiritual stuff on all the social media and stuff, it sounds wonderful. And also, what is it putting into our collective?
And you said something that your dad said that I constantly say is like, be careful.
Yeah.
Be careful, because like it is strong. It's strong. And we do have to be careful. We have to be mindful. We have to be conscious of what we're doing, right? I do believe in the spirit. I do believe that it's there, and I do believe that it talks to us, but not everybody is ready to take it. And I think that some people have hurt themselves mentally and spiritually. And, you know, so can I tell you my tarot story?
Yes.
So, I've always been interested in astrology and tarot, but I never really actually did it because like it was kind of like the weird kid was the people who did it. So I was like the skater. I was a skater kid, right? Like we were into like skater and like alternative stuff. Like, and Del Rio was funny because like we were like skater cholos. You know what I mean? And like we would listen to like Deftones and like Incubus and stuff, but we would also listen to like cholo music, like oldies, and I mean it was like the worlds were all together. So for us, like as a brown kids, like it wasn't separate. But I was always into like some of that stuff, but I never like actually fully went into it. When I got older, I started to like look into it, and I always wanted to learn how to do tarot. I've always wanted to learn how to like talk to spirit and like find, because I kind of like already did, and I was already experiencing stuff. And if you listen to some of the first like episodes of my podcast, like I'll tell the story of what happened to me as a kid that opened me up to spirit. I was one of those kids that was like, I guess you could say that my crown chakra was opened up or prematurely and early, and I was given spirit early, and it was making me sick. It made me sick, and I had to immediately see curanderos to help me, guide me through that process. And I was very blessed to have somebody able to help me with that. But so anyway, I was working for the city. I was working for them for like 6 years. So like a lot of my instances were like when I was working there. But I would go into the West Side all the time, and there was this one place that I went to called the Madonna Center. And I would always go over there and talk to like the workers that were working there. They were hilarious. And we were always joking around, and I was just like doing some kind of crazy shit to like make them laugh and whatever, right? And so then we would always tell these stories. And one time this guy was telling me the story about how he was working the Ouija board, right? And he was like, I got my first Ouija board when I was younger. He goes, but my wife and I were already married. And he said, we started messing with the Ouija board, and we like got really obsessed with it, and that we like literally lost like 3 months of our lives, not knowing where where we had been spending every night talking to the Ouija. Like we spent every night for this relationship with the spirit. And he said that they started experiencing a lot of crazy stuff in their house and like whatever. And I was like, I ain't scared of the Ouija board. Like I was telling him, like, I ain't scared. Like I'll do it. Like I'm the type of person too that would go head first into like a haunted house, but I would not go head first into like a real spooky house. Remember, did you hear me say that at the thing? Like I hate like the 13th floor stuff.
Oh, gotcha.
But I'll like go into like the Black Swan Inn, like, and get possessed. Anyway, I was telling him that I want to do like tarot, and he was just like, oh, like you shouldn't mess with that kind of stuff. And I was like, well, I'm just really into it. Like I want to know more about it. And he was like, okay, all right. So then like they kind of knew that, like we had that conversation like with the workers there, and they always thought that I was like the weird guy or whatever. But I was always down for whatever. One day I go back to the Madonna Center, and I go up to the top floor, and I'm like hanging out with the office folks. And then someone says, somebody left a package for you here. And I was like, what? I was like, why? And they're like, yeah, like it's here you go. Like it's a package. And I was like, what is it? And he was like, dude, I don't know. Someone said it's yours. And I was just like, I'm not expecting anything here. And they were just like, somebody came and said it was yours. And like, who said? They were like, well, somebody said that they got the package, and they said that for them to give it to you, that it was yours. And I was like, well, so then I went to go ask them, and they were just like, I don't know. This package was here. Somebody said it was yours. I'm like, what is this? Like, okay, fine. So like, I tear open the package, and it's a deck of tarot cards. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, and so I was like, yo, quit playing. Like, I was like, quit playing. Like, who's giving me these tarot cards? And somebody said, dude, they were already here. Somebody said they were yours. Somebody said the package was yours. So like, I immediately began to feel it. Like I like cracked open the tarot cards, and I was excited to have them because I've always wanted a deck. And I immediately began to feel it. I immediately began to see it. I immediately began to feel it, to see it.
Yep.
And I was just like, oh shit. Right. So I was like messing with the deck. I started to kind of like do like a 3-card reading for myself. And I would like put 3 cards and then I would like look it up on my phone and like learn like kind of like see the definitions of everything. And like, I was like kind of like freaking out because a lot of it was very spot on. And I was just like, dude, okay, whatever. Like shuffle them again and do it again. And like, it was like super spot on. And I was just like, okay, like I'm not freaking out. Like I'm not scared. So I was just kind of like, whatever. Right. So every time I would go somewhere, like the deck would tell me to grab it. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, so I would be like, okay, well, I'll be back. I'm gonna go to the store. And then I'd be like, the deck would tell me to grab it. Like I would have to grab the deck. Like I would have to take it with me. So I literally just like kept it in my, like on a bag that I constantly had, like a backpack that I constantly had. And I was driving one time and I had a vision, like in the middle of this drive. Like I was driving to the store or something and I had a vision, right? So the vision was, it was me looking into the rearview mirror of my car and there was 2 police the lights. And I was like, nah, man. Like, you know, like I was like, what is that? I kept thinking like, dude, I'm tripping. Like I'm seeing, why am I imagining this? Why is this constant vision happening to me? Why am I like daydreaming about this? I guess it felt like a daydream. Like I was constantly daydreaming about this vision. And so anyway, so, you know, I rehearsed just about every night of the week. And at the time I was drinking a lot. I was drinking every day. Like, I mean, I had been drinking every day for many, many years. And so like at this point I had just gotten worse. I was drinking heavy liquor and I was getting lit every time we had rehearsal. And it was just a thing. It was my thing. I like enjoyed being drunk. And so, we go to this rehearsal and my friend hits me up and he says, hey man, I need you to help me move a piano. And I was like, okay. And I was trying to get out of this rehearsal. So I was like, yo man, I gotta go. And so we had been rehearsing for like an hour and a half, maybe almost 2 hours. So I was like, you know, we had enough. We were just fucking around. And he said, come help me move this piano. And I was like, all right, cool. And so I got into my car. I put my liquor bottle like on my seat, like my passenger seat. That thing had like a bottle of tequila. And I was like put on the passenger seat. And so then like I was driving and then like the vision came to life. I saw in my rearview mirrors, I saw a cop pull the lights, but I had seen the cop looking at me, right? He kept looking in the car. I kept looking in the car and he like, I was just like this dude. And then like he decided to like slow down and I went ahead and he pulled up behind me and he put the lights and I immediately saw the vision. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh shit, this is the vision. I was like, what kind of lesson are you teaching me? What kind of lesson am I going to go through right now? I was like, oh crap. So I stink of liquor. I'm drinking heavy shit. I'm not drinking beer or freaking Trulies or anything. Like I smell like I've had a shot on my breath. And so I immediately put my bottle of liquor like under the seat, right? And so then like I'm like trying to hide it. So then like the one cop comes from the other side, and it's like a woman cop, right? And she's very like, you know, very aggressive, and she like puts the flashlight in my face, and she's like, and she's like, you're I forgot what she said, like, oh, you have a tail light out or something, right? And I'm just like, oh, I didn't notice. And I was like, I guess I gotta get that fixed, you know, all nervous, right? Like I'm super nervous. And she was just like, why are you breathing so heavy? And I'm just like, I'm sorry, man, cops make me nervous. And she was like, okay. So then she like, on the passenger side, there was a male cop, right? And he like flashes this light, right? And he goes, and so like these 2 lights are like facing me like this. And then like, he looks down onto the floor of the car, and there's fucking the body of my liquor bottle poking out the bottom. And so then he like looks at her, and they look at each other, and they exchange looks like, this dude's obviously drinking and driving, right? So they say, sir, can you get out of the vehicle? So I'm just like, fuck. So like I speed dial my homeboy who's telling me to come pick up the piano, right? And I'm just like, I kind of like whisper into the phone, I'm like, dude, I think I'm getting stopped. I'm probably gonna go to jail. I was like, do me a favor, man. Like in like 30 minutes, check to see if I'm like getting booked or whatever. I kind of was like throwing him the signal, right? And so then all this is happening. I'm like panicking, right? Because I'm gonna go to jail, but I'm also like worried that the DWI is gonna kill my reputation, right? So I was like, oh, Lord, am I incriminating myself? I have no idea. Anyway, so I'm like super nervous. I'm like freaking out. And then like, so so I pulled into a parking lot. When I was pulled over, I pulled into a parking lot. And then out of nowhere, the señora that was working the restaurant and the cook run out of the restaurant. And they're like, ayúdanos, 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 help, we need your help. Like they start screaming for help. And this like old black man comes out of the restaurant and he's foaming at the mouth. And he's like falling up, like he's like seizuring and foaming and falling apart. And the lady, that's literally the lady who was in the cop car, just says, leave, get out of here, go. And I was just like, what? Like I couldn't believe it, but I was looking at this old man, and this old man was like an old black man out of nowhere, dude. Like that neighborhood isn't where like old black people are. Yeah. It was a Mexican restaurant. And then like the timing was insane. And she was just like, leave, go. You need to get out of here. Like, just go. And I was like, so like, I literally like get into my car and like I drive around the corner and just like start like bawling, dude. And I couldn't help but feel that something within the tarot card protected me.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
And hopefully, do you know what happened to that man? Was he? I mean,
Dude.
he had help right there, though. You know.
We had these two cops who were really giving it to me, but I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, like all of this was all happening so fast, but I also looked like I couldn't help but like also be in shock of what I was seeing that old man. Like when I was watching him, like it seemed like he was having a heart attack or something. I think when people are making the symbols that he was doing with his body, he was maybe having a heart attack. But I was like, what? Like because all of this was going through my mind. So like I was just like, what's happening? And I was shocked. So like when I drove off like I remember like looking out the window and thinking like, are you sure you're letting me go? Because I was like, there's no way this
You're
is
like
happening.
telling him, are y'all sure? Y'all?
I was like, are you sure? I literally was just like, I drove really slow out the parking lot when I should have hauled ass. And I like drove around the block and like hid in the dark and was just like, I started to just like bawl. I was like crying because I was thinking like, dude, something interjected this thing. And it was mind boggling.
Do you still have the deck?
I still have it. I keep it on my altar. I don't keep it with me anymore. I think that there was something that at some point, I think the sobriety lessened the door when I became sober. So now it's been 3 years since I've been sober. There's something about the sobriety that focused the door. Like it focused the spirit world for me. And so then it's not like heavy in my ear, and the daydreams are still there, the visions are still there, but they're not really intense. I've done like maybe 2 or 3 readings for a couple of friends, and they were spot on. And it was funny because she asked me, she said, how did you do that? And I was like, it's not me, dude. It's not me.
I'm just allowing it to come out.
It's not me. I told her it's not me.
I don't understand. I'm like, I've done probably at least like 200 readings for people over the past 2 years or so. I'm like, and they're all right. I don't know how. Like, I'm just like, I think because I'm just so in awe of it and so like faithful in it that like the right message is going to come out. And I really, right, like if it's coming from a genuine heart, a genuine pure place, then like it's in good faith, right? And so I trust that the message that's meant for the person to be heard is going to come out. Because I do get nervous. I get nervous. There's been times where I've stopped doing it for people, astrology readings too, because I'm like, this does not dictate your reality. Like, this is a little screenshot of right now what's happening and maybe some advice for how to move forward, but this is by no means meant to get in your mind that this is your reality. Yeah. You have a gazillion choices beyond you after this, and you choose what to do with that. It's really nerve-wracking having that much, I guess, power.
Yeah. The other thing too that I don't like to do, and I was taught to do limpias. I was taught to do limpias as a kid because I was having a lot of anxiety based off of like interactions that I was having with spiritual experiences. I don't do limpias for people because I literally have done maybe 1 or 2 limpias. Sorry, Jefes. I have done like 1 or 2 limpias, but that has opened the door for my home. It has opened doors in my home. And I would have straight up entities and apparitions pop up in my face at my house. Mm-hmm. And so I have like stood back from that, you know?
Yeah, like Reiki and stuff. When people, you know, talk about going to Reiki practitioners, I'm like, that is somebody like they know how to manipulate energy, and you're handing your body over to them. Like, if you trust them, cool. But like, I don't
all this, yeah, that's you made a good point right there. Like, if you trust them, like, then it should be fine. Like, people do that with their pastors and therapists all the time. People do that with their you know, with the priests and that stuff all the time. Like confessions, for example. Yeah. Like confessions is like a list of traumas. Like, you know, a priest has to take that and do away with it, right? And so, you know, it's like, I mean, it's also like having sex. Like sex is like another way too that you literally open your spirit to other people. For sure. And they can move that within themselves too, or they can also move. And I always tell people that, like, you know, one of the things that if you ever think about the statues that people have, like Catholic churches, like I went to the Vatican some time ago, like a long time ago, and there was this one statue that really stood out to me. First of all, the statues are amazing, the detail on those statues. But there was this one statue that we went to where it was like, where was it? I don't know if it was like in a catacomb or something, but it was like it was a statue of a woman receiving the Holy Ghost. I don't know if you all know where that's at, but I'm sure that if we look it up, we can find it. But like her face, it looked like she was like straight up having an orgasm.
Is it the one where she's like laying down like that and like
kind of like it's like dude, it's really,
she looks like she's having an orgasm.
It's really sexy. It's like super sexy, like but it's also like it's supposed to be like a holy piece. But I was kind of like I mean, I don't know if maybe I was just like necio at the time. I'm still necio, but I was like seeing it and I was just like, but then I've had conversation with people and they're just like, well, it seems like it's the same thing. It's like it's this energy.
I can talk about sex magic.
Energy exchange is really intense. Like that energy exchange is really intense, you know? Mm-hmm. You got to be careful. Just like Pop said, you got to be careful. I tell that to people all the time. You just got to be careful. If you trust somebody, open yourself up to it. It might be beautiful. It might result in something amazing, but you have to be careful.
Yeah, I do a lot of. Intend to focus my private practice on sex therapy. I've studied sexology a lot, and I always tell people to just masturbate, just solo sex first, and find that kind of energy within yourself first, because then you're not going to settle for less from any partner, and it's possible to create that type of orgasmic pleasure solo, that connection with spirit, I guess, through gratitude sexually. And if we can do that with ourselves first, I think it creates much healthier relationships with partners.
Well, and then something that you're saying is like, I totally agree. And like, there's so many things that I've thought about. Like, one, right, like how and where did that connection exist within indigenous people, right?
I wonder that. I'm so curious.
So there is, right? So I know it's like some of the first like lessons that I've ever saw that was like running. What is it called? Dances with Wolves. You know, it's all like terrible freaking sex scenes. Anyway, but I was gonna say though, like something that I've learned growing up in indigenous circles is that the saying "all my relations," right? And the idea of like all our relations and the relationship that we have with all things, right? And you mentioned this like relationship that you have with this tree, and I always think about like whenever I think about like, you know, like the exchange of energy, I think that whether we believe it or not, like that little orgasmic energy can also be exchanged within like trees and like spirits,
100%.
You know. And I don't mean like you're having sex with a tree, but there's that energy exchange that you can, and so like The other thing that I always think about is like where colonizer energy exists, and like the echo of that colonizer energy, right? And sometimes it shows up in like the partners that we choose, the people that were raised up in these neighborhoods where colonization was heavily done. And then you have these relationships with people who may be abusive. And it's like, okay, I'm like, who engaged in
You're
this?
talking about me.
You know, like who engaged in who in your history engaged with colonizer or had a traumatic colonizer experience, and that echo through the generations is now transferring into this person who is now baby daddy number 1 or baby daddy number 2, who just could not get it together, and he was abusive and ugly. And it's just like, you know, we open ourselves up to that sexually, you know, we create that exchange, that energy exchange, and then we carry the trauma of our partners. And I'm always thinking like you know, like, man, colonization has had such an effect on that type of energy too.
God,
You know,
so bad. Actually, academically, machismo, there's like literature about where machismo came from, and it's I would consider my ex pretty machismo, but there's this aspect of Hispanic culture, right, or Mexican culture, of that like passion, that intense passion of machismo along, and that's the indigenous part, along with that violent part of the colonizer. And so, yeah, like there's research papers written about the history of machismo, that it's this mixture of really intense passion of indigenous people and the violence of the colonizers. And it makes me think what you said about like the trees and stuff, and I've used that exact example with friends before when kind of trying to teach them, I guess, about like sex magic stuff, because it's possible. I'm surprised I'm getting into this on this podcast, but like it's possible to, when having orgasms, to have them so full of gratitude for just like creation and life, and especially through conscious breathing of that. And so if you're consciously breathing, which is hard to do anytime, but especially
all the time,
through orgasm, especially through sex, but that's where the best pleasure is at. And so when you're able to slow down your breath or really consciously be conscious during orgasm, right, rather than just like a sneeze that like most people unfortunately do have, then you elongate it, you get it, that kind of pleasure, hormones literally attached to your breathing. And then when you're going outside and you're walking around and you're like, wow, that tree is fucking beautiful.
like, oh man, this day is gorgeous, man.
You will literally have orgasm hormones flowing through your body as you experience that just joy and beauty of the world around you.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, like you saying that about the indigenous, like, I wonder what sex is like. I've wondered that so much. And yeah, right now it just feels like serendipitous or synchronistic, where I'm like, that's it. Like, it's this just like total joy and orgasmic feeling for just life at all.
And I think maybe, you know, some of the, and I don't know, maybe this is silly for me to think, but I'm just like building off of this concept. But like some of the, I think, success of my work is that like I try to have fun and bring good energy to wherever I go, that like there was like an arousal process of like whenever I'm organizing and doing stuff with community, you know, and I feel like it works. People feel excited to be around me. I feel excited to be around people, and the energy exchanges really well.
That's like, creation energy.
It is creation energy. That's why I feel like, you know, I was listening to some like Instagram like reel where they were talking about how like the makeup industry is really commodified that look of arousal and creating the flush look, and how they, you know, people have to have that, you know. And so it's like now it has become part of people's literal like personality, that it's not even has anything to do with any kind of arousal, but it's just the look, right? It's like commodified now, you know. It's like Walmart arousal.
It's so funny, this conversation, because I had I don't want to say a sexless life for many years, but like without a partner or whatever. And now I see it like as this indigenous kind of connection, because I even wrote a song about it, how I was like, it was like making love with all the elements. And in my mind, it was who I considered like my one true love that died when I was like 20. But and I'm connecting with him through the elements or whatever. But I was perfectly satisfied and fine throughout all those years. Like, just, with the wind and the sunshine on my skin or whatever. And then I've been mistaken many, many times. Like, oh, you're hitting on me, right? And I was like, no, like, actually, this is just how I am or whatever. And I just wonder if it was that creation energy that I just kind of carried or whatever, and people would pick up on.
I get that a lot too, though. I get that a lot too, because like people always say, you're like a big flirt. And I'm just like, I'm not a flirt. I'm an excited little boy all the time. Like for me, I don't want to grow up. I don't want to grow up, because the curiosity of existence leaves when you have to like do this. Like for me, like I hate doing paperwork for the office, but I have to do mileage, right? I have to do like, timesheets, like I have to do reports on some of the stuff. But like, how do you report back on the amazing experiences that you might have had talking with some community members? It's like, it's hard to do that. For me, it's so hard to grow up. And like, I'm not like, and I always tell people like that maybe creation energy for me is like channeling my inner little boy, channeling my inner, the curiosity and the wonder of like the world and life. And like, for me, that's why like storytelling, ghost stories, paranormal stuff is like, for me, it's like the catalyst for jumping into some of that energy. Like it's like that the kickstart, like the starter, and like if I start getting into conversations with people about UFOs, for example, like, oh, hey, you like UFOs, right? You're like a UFO fool. And I'm just like, sure, right? Like I'll get into these conversations, because for me, it takes us out of like the norm of what would be like just a whatever stagnant conversation, and it'll start going into like all the weird stuff. And so then we start talking about things like that. Like we start talking about like energy exchange with trees, and what is that, like the mushroom trip, things that the entities that people are seeing, and like it opens it up. And for me, it's like I love to have that energy in all things that I do. Like everything that I do, I want to be like this curious little kid.
You start with the taboo.
I do. And it's like, it's so funny, because like at this point now I don't have to tell people anymore. People just know. And so like, for example, when I've got to meet several people who are like really popular, like Joaquin. Are you familiar with Joaquin? He sings with a group called the Sinceres, and he also like plays guitar for the Altons. And then also like Duran Jones and the Indicators. Nice. Like I got to meet Duran Jones, and everybody just like, hey, Joaquin, hey, this dude Joaquin, he's cool, man. He's like a singer and everything. He has this badass band. He does like Chicano doo-wop, but hey, he likes aliens, and he has this podcast. And they'll be all like, at first they're like talking about the music, and they'll be all like, oh yeah, well, yeah, music, whatever, singer, yeah, sure, 80s. What? Aliens? And I'm just like, yeah. I'm like, that's not my thing, but it is my thing. So I'm just like, fuck it, let's just go there. So immediately, it's almost, now it just always goes there. But it like opens up the wonder.
This hand touched Sharon Jones.
Oh my God. I
know, right?
When was that?
I forgot what year it was, but it was like maybe 2 years before she died or whatever.
She came here, right?
It was Austin City Limits.
Austin City Limits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I love her.
Yeah, I love her.
I love her music and her band, dude.
Oh my God, perfect. Everything was so clean. I mean, perfect. Like pros.
Did you see a Kelly Finnegan when he came? Kelly Finnegan came into town, did like a solo piece, but he's also the soul, man. Just soul behind these people, man. So good.
Nice.
Man, what a list of things, right? It's all over the place. It's all over the place. I love it.
We got 1 minute. So I gotta get my kids from school.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Wow. That's fun. I could talk.
So we should get started. No, I'm just kidding. It's like, my first question is no.
Well, thank you so much for coming on to our show, our episode, our podcast, and you're welcome back anytime.
I love the studio. This is nice. And then y'all, thank you for the matcha peanut butter oat water.
Yeah. I mean, peanut butter.
It did. It tasted like peanut butter. Yeah. I don't know if she saw it on my face that I like peanut butter, but she kept pushing the peanut butter on me. It's like, I guess I had the face of a dog or something.
Yeah, that's Southwest Elixirs, y'all. So
Possible
good.
future sponsors.
You owe us money, Southwest.
Yeah, we just said your name, so.
Well, I appreciate y'all having me, man. This is amazing, and I'd love to do it again. Maybe we can focus some of the conversation on.
I know, we didn't even ask any questions. That was straight up just a conversation for an hour.
Oh, and then we
20 minutes.
And then we didn't even record the beginning conversation. Some of that stuff was really good
and
too.
I wanted to I actually had a bunch more in my head too. I was like, oh, we should talk about that and that.
We didn't talk about how Beyonce's a witch either.
Oh my God, I know. Maybe I think that's the whole point of me getting over here.
It was. That's and said that, and I was like, yes, exactly. Her and Taylor Swift.
But we did kind of get into like the melodrama of like the altars, right?
Yeah.
And that's something that for me, that was one of the reasons that, like, just to kind of go into real quick.
Yeah.
One of the reasons that I feel that maybe they're doing some kind of ritualism, right? One, I don't know if y'all remember this, but this is what opened me up to this. But do y'all remember that big Las Vegas shooter thing that happened at that country music, the country performance? Okay, that dude ended up being a dick, right? Like he was some kind of like hardcore right winger idiot. And anyway, but like something that the conspiracy world opened up to me was shapes and numerology based off of shapes and design, right? And so like some of the things that they saw based off of the bullets was that the shapes that they were using when the bullets were shooting, that they were lining up with the shapes of like the pyramid structures that were out there, and some of the like there was like basically like shape alignments that were happening at that Las Vegas shooting, right? So then like that same person later on did a thing, and if I can find it, I'm gonna share it. About the shapes and the design of the backdrops and the stages that Beyonce's performing on, right? Like she's basically like walking down pyramids, and she's wearing like these like, and the energy behind like some of her faces that she's making and that kind of stuff, like it's very passionate. And then some of the things that she's saying are very like powerful and moving. And then when you see like the relationship between her and Jay-Z, like it's like very like I don't know how to explain it, but like it's not very Will Smith and Jada Pinkett. Like it's like it's very separate. They have their own thing going on. So for me, like the one thing that I saw was common was that there's the melodrama similar to what is a mass, right? There's like these openings, there's like these closings, there's like these like the calling and the conjuring, and then the music itself is very, very powerful. Like a lot, none of it is like normal, none of it's chill.
Oh, there's frequencies in all of that type of music, and her songs. Yeah, I got really into all of this coding of music, pop music, whatever they're kind of. My kids think I am so crazy. I'm like, don't listen to that stuff, and we'll put it on. I do say prayers over their crown chakras frequently because of it, but I got real into it. It was really wild the day of that Travis Scott concert. The day before, I knew nothing. I didn't know who that guy was, except maybe that he was married to I didn't know anything about the Kardashians or Jenners at that point either. But the day before, or maybe the day of, it was so random. I all of a sudden just got into this like rabbit hole. I remember laying in my bed just reading all this stuff about the witchcraft of the Kardashians. I knew nothing about them before that day. It was so random. And then I texted my neighbor who I'm really close with, and she's also very like in tune, open to all gets the
galaxy
downloads,
connection,
whatever, yeah. And I was like, dude, I've been laying in bed all day just researching the Kardashians. It's so weird. And she was like, me too. I was like, that is so random. And then the next morning she sent me about the Travis Scott concert. We had no idea what was happening that day, but it was only happening 180 miles away from us, and the energy of that.
It was in Houston, right?
Holy shit! The codes in that. I mean, like Kendall, just one example of a gazillion I could probably name off the top of my head, because I just like got so into all of the codes after that, seeing them everywhere. We were just talking about this. I would like text Ange like this code and this code, this code, this means this means that. Because they just have to like put it out, right? They put it out to the collective, and then it goes into our subconscious. And yeah, just one of them, I remember Kendall Jenner. I never knew this before until that day, but the black and white blocks,
like the checkers, yeah.
That's very hypnotizing, right? So Kendall Jenner was there, had a dress on of exactly that, and then his stage was a pyramid, a mountain. And then he had this whole like eye in the background the whole time that was happening. Oh my God, it was so awful.
It was very like Project Bluebeam-ish. It was very satanic. They were
lifting bodies.
It was also like, it's also Masonic, because it's very Masonic, which is like a lot of that is like, it's like, I don't know, it's like knowledge beyond our understanding. Some of it,
secret knowledge is the point, but then they put it out for us very blatantly, because if they do that, they don't get the karma of it.
And it's and for me, it's like, that's the ritual.
Yes,
that's the ritual.
It is that night. Do you know how much? Like, that was like it was first off November like 1st or 3rd or something.
Oh,
so
shit.
During that portal.
So it's this time.
Oh snap.
Yes, that experience just changed everything for me. Even Halloween now, like last year, I'll still take my kids trick-or-treating, but I'm like, y'all, like, be careful. This has historically throughout multiple cultures been a time of the thinnest veils. And there's a lot of people putting bad, scary, why do you think everything's so scary? To elicit fear, to harvest off of our fear. And my kids last year, I noticed afterward, they were like monsters the next day. That night and the next day, they were so awful, like so grumpy. And like, think about Hocus Pocus is a movie about them luring children in order to steal their souls. That was my favorite movie. Now I'm like, I'll still let my kids watch, because I don't think that like sheltering them from all this stuff is the answer either, but like I'll like allow them to listen to the music, watch the movies and stuff, but I'm like, you see, right? You see it.
So I'm kind of like, I think I've said this already, but I'm like the opposite end of that. Like, I'll dive head first into some of that stuff. So like when I was a little kid, my mother was very scared of the dark, and she taught us to be scared of the dark. And there was no horror movies in our house, none whatsoever. And the minute that I moved out, I became like obsessed.
Yeah.
And so like some of my favorite movies are like Evil Dead. It's all spiritual. Evil Dead, Exorcist, the first Exorcist, one of my favorite movies of all time. And then also Hellraisers. Hellraisers are like, man, those are mind fucks, dude. Have you ever watched those?
I don't do scary movies.
Dude, okay. Well, if you're not gonna watch any of them, don't watch those, because they will fuck your shit up.
I will project it out into reality. Like, that's why I can't watch that stuff.
Well, so anyway, one of the things that I got really into before, like I even knew about the Travis Scott stuff, or even felt like anything that was happening, was I got really deep into like learning about Satanism. And I wanted to learn about it because I wanted to learn like what's the big deal, because the people that I was seeing that were practicing Satanism were like Viking-ish looking white dudes. So like I was like, where's the lineup? Like, what's the lineup with this like look? Why are those people so into it? Like when you think about like Anton LaVey, and those guys are like, I mean, they were like clean, you know what I mean? They were like well-dressed, well-mannered people. They had all of this. And so anyway, I started to look into it. And then when I saw the performance and I immediately recognized the symbolism, I was just like, oh shit. And so then like now I see it on people who have those tattoos and that kind of stuff, because I got deep into it. Like I own books and stuff. Like I was looking through all of that. And I try to keep a library of like all the books.
You have to know.
I have a library of all the books. So like I have some really cool library. I'll send you all a picture of it. But yeah, so now when I walk around and I see the symbolism, I'm just like, oh shit. And for me, like one of them is like the spiky frost tower, dude.
I was gonna say this earlier, actually, when you were talking about frost. I kind of did. I was like the energetics of.
We did. You were talking about.
I was trying to like.
And I was trying to lead to, and it's so funny we're not talking about, but I was trying to lead to like the Las Vegas shooting because of the look of the frostbank tower, dude. When it came up, like the mirror tower with the eye in the center and the spikes, dude. Like the other building that freaked me out, and I don't know if it's a frost tower or not, but the one that's in Austin that looks like the owl.
That's a frost tower.
It's a frost tower.
Yes,
right? Yeah.
It's an owl, a fucking owl.
See,
They
everybody's like,
know,
leave Frost alone. I was like, no.
They're doing
like,
magic over this whole region, which is such a sacred region.
It is. This is. I mean, we didn't even get to talk about the star alignments over the mission, but I'm sure you guys had that conversation already.
Or
but
the 2 eclipses.
Oh, that's right. We didn't even like talk about that.
I know that's the reason why we decided to come over here. But you know, the one thing that I know is that like all that magic is, it's all being done in our face.
Yeah.
I mean, well, you know what, Frost? If I'll take your sponsorship, man. I'll read that book. I'll put an owl on my podcast.
It also looks, from what I imagine, from like the sky, like a butthole.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. That's a good strong symbol there.
Lighten it up a little.
You should draw that, and we will just like project
Now
that out
we'll tattoo
into the collective.
on my neck.
It's just an asshole, guys. That's all it is.
A clean one, which is not realistic.
I mean, I like, you know, necessary to redo the codes. I keep talking away from the mic.
I'll tell you that I know that the Roadcaster does that, and there's something about, because I've got to experience the Roadcaster with the Los Cico podcast, and there's a button that you can use to reduce the sound. We'll talk about it later, but I've noticed that it channels in and out of like loud and
when
soft.
I do this. Well, I'm always moving. I move so much. I guess I don't know. But yes, I don't know what I was saying. Oh, yeah, see, it's so much better when I'm close to the mic.
You'll have to come back.
And I'll be closer to the mic.
Episode 2, we gotta do episode 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love that.
All right. But
all right, yeah. We gotta go pick up kids from school.
All right.
Thanks
again.
Thank you, Joaquin. Oh, what's your pitch?
Look for me on the Chicanx versus Aliens podcast. That's where I talk about all my experiences, paranormal, black occult, and it's all from a communities of color perspective. And then you can also look me up at Joaquin Soul Music on Instagram, or Joaquin Muerte. If you want to see the ghost videos and the alien videos and all that stuff, add Joaquin Muerte. If you want to hear all my soul projects and my voice and my Chicano soul music, it's Joaquin Soul Music. I'm also a member of Combo Cosmico. You can look us up at Combo Cosmico on Instagram. And then I'm also I play the drums for Felipe Jr. And I will also be performing with the Canción Cannibal Cabaret with Amalia Ortiz. So I'm just doing a lot of music and stuff. So you can find me this year at the Muertos Fest. But I say this year, but I've played the Muertos Fest just about every year for the past few years. But also just look for me. I'm out and about all the time.
So anytime you're watching this, the next Muerte Fest.
I'll probably be there. If I'm alive, I'll be there.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Let's wrap. Whew.
And actually, I forgot. My dad's going to get the kids.
Oh, really?
But I got to pee.
That's funny. Oh, man. I wanted to talk forever.
I know. You know, the one thing that I've been... And I'm not sure how comfortable I am talking too much about this on podcasts. Is